check! It's English O'Clock! Ang pag-aaral ng English upang madaling matutunan, bakit hindi natin simplihan? Halika! Manood at makinig sa English Teacher ni Juan! Kung bago ka pa lang sa channel na to, huwag kang matakot! I made learning English easy for you! Please like, comment, and subscribe. At pakishare mo na rin sa iba para marami pang mga Juan na gaya mo ang matuto. Hello, Grade 7! Ready na ba kayo for another English 7 learning episode? I bet you are, kaya naman magsimula na tayo! Our target learning competency for this video is analyze a literary text as an expression of individual or communal values within biographical and historical contexts. In analyzing a literary text, be it a poem or a short story, we apply different approaches. Sa previous video natin, we talked about structural approach or the structural context of a short story. When we say structural context, it refers to the framework or organization of short story elements, including the plot, characters, setting, theme, and point of view. In layman's term, the structural context of a short story is like the way a building is put together. It's about how the different parts of the story, like the characters, the events, the setting, and how the story is told, are arranged to create the whole. Meanwhile, our target objective for today's discussion is about biographical and historical context. Biographical from the root word biography or talambuhay sa Filipino, and historical from the word history or kasaysayan sa Filipino. Let's begin with biographical context. Biographical context in a short story refers to how the author's life, experiences, and background influence the story. Understanding the author's personal history, beliefs, and social environment can provide deeper insight into the themes, characters, and events within the story. For instance, the author may draw on real-life experiences, cultural background, or historical events they lived through, which can shape the setting, mood, or message of the narrative. By analyzing the biographical context, readers can connect aspects of the author's life with the story, making it easier to understand why certain themes, characters, or events are presented in a specific way. It helps uncover the relationship between the writer's life and the creative choices made in the story. Meanwhile, the literary text intended to be discussed for this particular topic is the short story penned by a renowned Filipino-American writer, Bienvenido N. Santos, entitled The Scent of Apples. Go ahead and watch the video I uploaded for the reading of the selection. After reading, let us make an analysis through its biographical context. Bienvenido Santos' Scent of Apples is a poignant exploration of the Filipino immigrant experience, identity, and alienation in a foreign land, specifically America. To analyze this story biographically, we must consider Santos' own life and experiences, which are intricately reflected in his writing. Bienvenido Santos' background. Santos was born in 1911 in Tondo, Manila, and lived through significant political and historical events that shaped his identity as a Filipino. During the Commonwealth period, he moved to the United States to study, initially planning to return to the Philippines. However, World War II altered his course, and he remained in America, experiencing firsthand the challenges and isolation faced by Filipino immigrants. The story's themes and Santos' life. Scent of Apples revolves around the encounter between the unnamed Filipino narrator, who is also a writer and academic, and an immigrant named Celestino Fabia. The story reveals themes of nostalgia, loss, and the longing for one's homeland. These themes mirror Santos' own feelings of displacement and alienation as a Filipino in America, where he struggled with identity and belonging. Displacement and alienation. Much like Santos, who lived in America for extended periods of time, the protagonist and Fabia represent the struggles of Filipinos away from home. Fabia's life in rural America is marked by isolation and a sense of longing for the Philippines. Santos often wrote about the Filipino diaspora and the emotional toll of being away from one's roots, which was a direct reflection of his own experience. Nostalgia for the homeland. Fabia's longing for his homeland and the narrator's reflections on the Philippines can be linked to Santos' deep attachment to his country. The scent of apples, a motif in the story, symbolizes the foreignness of America and the reminder of what is lost, the familiar scents, sights, and the people of the Philippines. Santos' frequent depiction of homesickness shows his personal struggle with cultural separation. Immigrant experience. Santos' writing often explored the Filipino immigrant experience, particularly the sense of being othered in American society. In Scent of Apples, Fabia's life exemplifies the marginalization of Filipino immigrants, often taking on low-status jobs and living in obscurity. His marriage to a white American woman and the disconnection he feels from his own culture emphasize the theme of assimilation and loss of identity. Santos' personal experiences as a Filipino navigating American society during a time when Asians faced racial prejudice are mirrored in the experiences of his characters. Literary success and struggles. In the story, the narrator, a Filipino writer, reflects on his own position in the American literary world. Santos also grappled with this, as he often felt that his work was not fully recognized by the American literary establishment. His writing gave voice to the Filipino immigrant experience, but it was not until later in his life that his contributions gained more appreciation. Emotional and cultural distance. There is a distinct emotional distance between Fabia and his homeland, and the narrator feels it too, despite being a visitor rather than a permanent immigrant. This reflects Santos' emotional struggle with the separation from his Filipino identity while in America. His work often captures the tension between being part of two cultures yet belonging fully to neither. In conclusion, Scent of Apples can be seen as an autobiographical reflection of Bienvenido Santos' own struggles with identity, displacement, and longing for his homeland. Through the character of Fabia and the narrator, Santos addresses the emotional complexity of the Filipino diaspora, themes he knew intimately due to his own experiences as an immigrant in the United States. The story, like much of Santos' work, is a deeply personal exploration of what it means to live between cultures and the sense of loss that accompanies it. But we have to remember that not all short stories are related to the personal life of the author, because some authors tend to revise the facts of their own lives, which could be misleading should one wish to connect the author's life with the text. Hence, not all short stories can be read and analyzed from a biographical perspective. Let us now proceed to discussing historical context. The historical context of a short story refers to the time period, events, social conditions, and cultural influences that shape the setting, characters, and themes of the narrative. It provides the backdrop against which the story takes place, influencing how characters behave, what conflicts arise, and what values are represented. Understanding the historical context helps readers grasp social and political conditions, which includes the societal norms, political systems, and class structures of the time. Cultural influences, which includes customs, traditions, and shared beliefs of the people in that era. Historical events, key events like wars, revolutions, or economic changes that affect the characters' lives. Author's perspective, it is how the author's own experiences and the period they lived in influence the themes and messages of the story. In short, the historical context enriches the meaning of the story by grounding it in the realities of a specific time and place, helping readers to better understand the motivations of characters and the relevance of the story's themes. Balikan natin yung short story na Scent of Apples, but this time, we will analyze it through historical context. The short story Scent of Apples by Bienvenido Santos can be analyzed through its historical context, reflecting the experiences of Filipino immigrants in the United States, particularly during the early to mid-20th century. Several key historical elements frame the narrative and shape its themes of displacement, identity, and cultural nostalgia. Filipino immigration to the United States. Scent of Apples was written during a time when many Filipinos, like Bienvenido Santos himself, were migrating to the United States, particularly during the American colonial period in the Philippines, that was 1898 to 1946, and its aftermath. During the early 20th century, the Philippines was an American colony, and Filipinos were considered U.S. nationals. This allowed them to migrate more easily than other Asians, but they still faced significant social and economic challenges. Labor migration. Many Filipinos came to the U.S. to work, particularly in agriculture, service industries, and low-paying jobs. Celestino Fabia, one of the main characters in Scent of Apples, represents these immigrants who left the Philippines seeking better opportunities, but ended up facing loneliness and alienation in a foreign land. Racial discrimination. Filipinos, like other Asian immigrants, faced racial prejudice and discrimination, which made assimilation difficult. The isolation felt by Fabia in the story reflects the social exclusion and cultural estrangement experienced by many Filipino immigrants during that time. World War II and its aftermath. World War II had a profound impact on the Philippines and its people. After the war, many Filipinos who had left for the United States either could not or chose not to return due to the destruction and changes in their homeland. Santos, who lived through the war and its aftermath, often wrote about the psychological and emotional toll of displacement. The story's sense of nostalgia for the Philippines, a homeland left behind, can be understood in the context of post-war disillusionment and the profound changes the war brought to Filipino society. Post-war immigration. The war led to an increase in Filipino immigration, with many seeking education or work opportunities in America. Like the narrator of the story, many Filipinos pursued higher education or academic career in the U.S., but often felt disconnected from their roots and struggled to find a sense of belonging in American society. Cultural identity and diaspora. The historical period in which Scent of Apples was written saw a growing awareness of the Filipino diaspora and the difficulties of maintaining one's cultural identity while living abroad. Many Filipino immigrants, like Fabia, faced the challenge of preserving their heritage while adapting to life in America. Loss of cultural identity. In the story, Fabia's rural American life, his American wife, and his son who does not speak Tagalog illustrate the erosion of his Filipino identity. This mirrors the historical experience of many immigrants who felt compelled to assimilate, often at the expense of their native language and traditions. Nostalgia and homesickness. The motif of the scent of apples serves as a metaphor for the foreignness of America and the persistent longing for the familiar scents and experiences of the Philippines. This longing for home is a common theme in literature about immigrant experiences, particularly during periods of significant migration and cultural displacement. American colonialism in the Philippines. The colonial relationship between the U.S. and the Philippines that was 1898 to 1946 plays a subtle but important role in the story. Filipinos, as subjects of American colonial rule, were exposed to American culture, values, and education, leading many to seek opportunities in the U.S. However, despite this relationship, Filipinos often remained marginalized and treated as second-class citizens when they arrived in America. Colonial mentality. The narrator's role as an academic visiting the U.S. and Fabia's struggles to find acceptance reflect the complex dynamic between colonizer and colonized. Many Filipinos, having been influenced by American colonial education, sought validation or success in the U.S., but often found themselves caught between two worlds, neither fully accepted nor fully at home in either. In conclusion, the historical context of Scent of Apples provides a deeper understanding of the story's themes of displacement, cultural identity, and nostalgia. Set against the backdrop of Filipino immigration to the United States, post-war displacement, and the lingering effects of American colonialism, the story reflects the complex emotions and struggles of Filipino immigrants trying to find their place in a foreign land. Bienvenido Santos, drawing from his own experiences as an immigrant, captures the sense of loss, isolation, and longing that characterized much of the Filipino diaspora during the 20th century.
So did you learn something today? Sure ako na hindi ka na nosebleed. If you want more of this video tutorial and learn English in a light speed, huwag kalimutang mag-subscribe at i-turn on ang notification button para updated ka sa mga bagong lessons. Ako ang teacher mo, ang English teacher ni Juan. Class dismissed! See ya!